Здравствуйте, товарищи. Welcome back to Russian Through Propaganda. We're on day 80, and today's topic is indefinite forms. These are similar to the negative forms we learned on day 79, and we saw how those were created from question words, and they were pretty easy to create, but using them may be a bit trickier, right? So it's much the same case today, right? The forms, the grammar really isn't that difficult, but this is still a rather tricky topic. So let's start out very simply and see what are the forms we're working with today. Again, we're starting with question words. So we have a few listed here just for examples, but you could take any question word and do this to create indefinite forms. And in Russian, for any one question word, we have two basic indefinite forms. One is formed by adding to the end, and the other by adding nibut. And note the hyphen, right? We are adding a hyphen. We are writing the hyphen. This isn't just for sort of demonstration purposes, right? So include the hyphen. And we get forms, for example, from когда, the question word когда, when, we get когда-то, and когда-нибудь. And we see that those would normally translate, I mean, in terms of just the most basic translation, we would use sometime, somehow, somewhere, etc. Right, so just to take one more example, где, right? Где means where. It's a question word. Где-то and где-нибудь, those are our two options for expressing somewhere, right? An indefinite expression in Russian. Okay, so the main question today is what's the difference, and that's really what's tricky about this. And I'll just warn you that a lot of books I've seen they don't treat this topic very well. And I know that because I was confused about this for a very long time as a Russian student. So this even happened when I spoke Russian actually quite well. This is one of the most common mistakes I was making, even after I'd been to Russia for a year and things like this. And it took me a lot of thinking, and my friends corrected me a lot before I kind of felt like I got a grasp on this. The main problem, I think, if I think back to what I was taught, you'll see books say things like когда-то means sometime and когда-нибудь means anytime. And that is not helpful at all, really. It is true that in context, we might translate these, especially когда-нибудь, as anytime. That could happen. But we're going to learn later today in our lesson that there's another set of Russian expressions that would much more often communicate the idea of an any word in English. Okay, so but again, there's a reason books may tell you that anytime or anyhow might work for a nibut word, but it doesn't really get to the real distinction between these two forms. Okay, so the way I explain it is this: когда-то. Well, first let's speak very vaguely. I like to say, for starters, that когда-нибудь, right, a form with нибудь is quote unquote more indefinite than a form in to. Okay, so we're just making kind of a generalization, right? Когда-то, right, the forms in to are a little bit more precise, they're a little bit more definite, so to speak, than nibut, which are more open-ended, indefinite expressions. Okay, so let's try to be more precise. That's not very helpful. It's kind of a good rule of thumb to make, but it doesn't really get at the crux of the problem. Okay, so forms in to refer to something that we know exists, but we don't know the details. Okay, so we on the one hand, we have something in mind in the sense that we know it exists, but we're not specifying anything, and we're choosing perhaps not to specify the details, or maybe we don't know the details. Okay, now if we think how that sort of translates into actual usage, if we know something exists, then we're probably in the present or the past, right? So these forms in to are going to be very common in the present tense and in the past tense, because in the present or the past, we can be sure that a thing exists, right? It's an actual thing. It either exists or existed, and we can know of it without necessarily knowing the details. Okay, so let's look at examples here. Я тебя где-то видела. Okay, so to, we're thinking kind of vaguely more definite, right? This is a more definite expression. Я тебя где-то видела. I've seen you somewhere. Okay, note the verb is past tense. So the idea here is that I've seen you somewhere. I'm just not sure where exactly. right? So again, we know that this where exists. We know we've seen this person. We just don't remember the specifics, right? So где-то. Now let's look at a present tense example. Книга где-то здесь. The book is here somewhere. Okay, so we're present tense, and we know apparently that there is a book. It's here somewhere. We know that it exists. We know the book exists. We know that this where exists, but we're not sure where, right? We just don't know the specifics. So we use the indefinite form with to. Finally, я позвонила ему когда-то на прошлой неделе. Okay, I called him at some point last week. Okay, so this call took place. This is a thing. We know that it happened. We know that at some point it happened, right? But we either don't know when or we're choosing not to give specifics, right? So we use когда-то, and again, the verb here is past tense. Now, if we switch to не будь, we'll see that the very existence of the thing is in doubt, right? It's a very kind of open-ended indefinite in the sense that not only do we not know, or maybe we're choosing not to specify the details, we don't know if the thing itself exists at all. Its existence is in doubt. Okay, and so for that reason, another generalization, не будь forms are going to be much more common in the future tense, right? Because if something's in the future, there's still doubt as to whether or not it will take place or, materialize or whatever. And also imperatives, right? Because if we're telling someone to do something or whatever, then that thing is still, again, in the future. And so its existence is still in doubt. Okay, so we might say, again, just kind of to generalize this, that these не будь expressions are extremely indefinite. It's not only the details that we don't know, but the very fact of the thing materializing is still in doubt. Okay, so let's look at examples. Давайте поедем куда-нибудь. Let's go somewhere. Okay, now this is a давай expression. I guess it's literally technically it's an imperative. It's a мы imperative. Okay, and this trip is in the future, right? And it's totally open-ended, right? So we really don't. The speaker has no particular place in mind here. And on top of that, it's a future event, right? So we're going to use не будь. Let's look at the second example. Жди меня где-нибудь у входа. Wait for me somewhere at the entrance. Okay, so this is a future tense, right? It's an imperative. This event has yet to happen. And we're saying, well, just wait somewhere near the entrance. We don't have anywhere specific in mind. Just somewhere near the entrance. Я хочу встретиться когда-нибудь. I'd like to meet up sometime, right? So we're talking about a future meeting, right? We're saying we'd like to meet up sometime in the future, but we don't. Not only do we not know specifics, we're not even sure this meeting will happen. Okay, now let's pull back for a moment and look at the translations, and you can see that these words are not translating here as anywhere, right? Let's go anywhere, right? That's not what we're saying here with the Russian. So again, if you see a book that tells you не будь translates as anywhere, you can see how misleading that is. Look at the second example. Wait for me anywhere at the entrance. Okay, we wouldn't say that. We just don't say that, and it doesn't capture the Russian. Or I'd like to meet up anytime, right? Now, again, we could say that. Oh, I can meet up anytime, right? But that's going to be a different expression in Russian. So again, in the majority of circumstances, both of these indefinite forms we've learned today, the ones in to and the ones in не будь, are going to translate using some in English. So we should definitely think of both of these as being the equivalent of a some expression in English, a some indefinite in English, and worry about the any expression in Russian later. That's going to be something different. Okay, now I should say that this is a little bit confusing, as you can see, right? I mean, it's not an easy thing to explain. Let's just look at some examples here and see if we can guess. Would we use to or не будь in Russian in these circumstances? They went somewhere last week. Okay, let's see. They went somewhere last week. Past tense. Okay, it sounds like they went somewhere. That's for sure, but we just don't know exactly where. We don't know the specifics. Okay, that's going to be to. That's going to be куда-то. Куда-то. Now, number two, a good contrast. I want to go somewhere. Okay, that's a desire. We're desiring some future event. That's going to be куда-нибудь. Куда-нибудь, right? I want to go somewhere. Nothing definite in mind, and this trip has yet to materialize. Number 3, I'll bring you a cake sometime. Okay, sometime, this is future tense. This would be когда-нибудь. Когда-нибудь. Now here, we're going to see more examples of this in a moment. Could you say когда-то in the future tense? You could, but it almost always sounds strange, and because it implies that the speaker has a definite time in mind, but they're choosing for whatever reason not to make that clear in their utterance, right? So it's kind of a weird thing to say, and we're going to see clearer examples of this later. So again, this distinction we're drawing today, it's not a grammatical distinction, right? In the sense that it's not really going to be right or wrong, but again, in the context, choosing between to and нибудь has certain very clear implications, and that's why I remember again my Russian friends correcting me constantly when I was using these expressions. But it would immediately read as wrong, quote unquote, even though grammatically speaking, there wasn't anything wrong with it. Okay, so more examples. Number 4, he bought me a cake one time. Okay, so this is in the past. He bought us a cake. It's for certain. There was a certain time when he bought it, but we're not specifying. This is going to be когда-то. Когда-то. Number 5, help me somehow. Right? Okay, this is going to be a как expression. Right? This is an imperative. Как-нибудь. Как-нибудь. Right? Help me somehow. However you can. Right? Number 6, he somehow managed to do it. Okay, this is past tense. He did it. There was this how existed, so to speak, but we're not specifying any further, right? So this is going to be как-то, как-то. Okay, so in this exercise, we have sort of pairs that you can contrast in the sense of choosing between to and нибудь. Okay, let's move on and look at more indefinite forms. Now, sort of like on day 79, right, we saw that if we form these expressions from что or кто, then they're going to decline because что and кто are pronouns. They decline. They have a full set of case forms. And here, these forms, there's nothing new here, really. I've given you a table just to be helpful. But we're just adding, что, чего, что, чему. We're taking whatever case form and simply adding the to or the нибудь to it. So there you go. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Кто-то сидел в библиотеке. Okay, past tense. There was someone sitting in the library. We know there was someone there. We saw them or whatever, but we don't know, or we're choosing not to tell specifically who it was. Right? Кто-то сидел в библиотеке. Я купил что-то для тебя. I bought something for you. Okay, let's think, different scenarios here. It could be maybe a surprise, right? So we haven't shown the person what it is yet, but we're saying I bought something. This something exists. This is a past action, but we're not choosing to tell the specifics, right? So я купил что-то. Finally, они говорят о ком-то. Okay, so they're talking about someone. Okay, we're sure they're talking about someone, present tense. We just don't know who exactly. Or we could say о чем-то, right? They're talking about something. We know that for a fact, but we don't know the specifics. So we use то. Okay, now some examples with нибудь. Купи мне что-нибудь, right? Buy me something. Again, a very open-ended, it's an imperative. It's referring to a future event that hasn't even taken place yet. And here again, this may be a good example. Would it be weird to say купи мне что-то? Yes, it would usually be very weird because it sounds like, again, you have something specific in mind. It's not this open-ended thing like, oh, buy me something, buy me a souvenir. It rather sounds like you have something very specific in mind, but you're choosing to be coy about it, right? And why would you do that, right? If you wanted something specific, why would you not just say what it is, right? So sometimes these scenarios it kind of sounds like there's a kind of a wink going on, right? Hey, buy me that certain something. You know what I'm talking about, right? But I'm not spelling it out for you. Okay, so again, this is kind of getting a little bit off track, you see, because we're cooking up these crazy scenarios. So hopefully you're seeing that these rules of thumb we're giving about tense are pretty reliable, right? Again, if it's an imperative, you're going to almost always get нибудь with that. Buy me something. right? Or for example, я привезу тебе что-нибудь из Москвы. I'll bring you something from Moscow, right? I'll get you a souvenir. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't bought it yet, right? But I'll get you something. Okay, ты должен кого-нибудь спросить. You should ask someone. Okay, now this sentence technically is present tense, right? Ты должен, but it's still referring to a future event, right? Hey, you should go ask someone, right? That hasn't happened yet. We don't know who this person would be, right? We don't really have any idea. Now, again, if we said ты должен кого-то спросить, it's sort of like, it implies something like, oh, you should go ask a certain someone, wink, wink, right? I mean, it would almost never make sense here, right? It would be a very unusual kind of thing to say. Ты должен кого-нибудь спросить. Okay, as we discussed on day 79, right, we do have two question words, какой and che, that are adjectival. They decline as well. They have adjectival endings. And so same thing here today, right? We would decline, we would use the appropriate case form for these adjectives and just tack to or нибудь onto the end. Okay, for example, это какая-то игрушка. Okay, it's some kind of toy, right? So maybe we're looking at a toy, we're maybe showing it. We don't know what it is exactly. We don't know what it's for, maybe what it's called, etc. But we know the thing exists. So какая-то игрушка. Какой-то мужчина там стоял. Some man was standing there. Or, translating a bit more literally, some kind of man. Right? So какой-то мужчина in Russian. But again, in English here, we would say some guy was standing there. I saw him. I know he was there. I don't know who he was. Exactly. Okay, купи мне какой-нибудь souvenir. Again, buy me some kind of souvenir, right? The souvenir hasn't been bought yet. We have a future event. We want some kind of souvenir, but we really have no idea what it might look like. Okay, so let's do a few of these. Let's invite someone to dinner. Давайте пригласим, right? Let's invite. Okay, someone. Кого-нибудь на ужин. Кого-нибудь. Давайте пригласим кого-нибудь. Okay, so again, this is a future tense sort of event, right? Hey, let's invite someone to dinner. It's very open-ended. We don't seem to have any idea of who specifically we'd like to invite. Now, again, if we said давайте пригласим кого-то, it sounds like, again, wink, wink. Hey, let's invite that special someone, right? Whom I'm not naming for whatever reason, right? Let's invite them to dinner. Okay, it would be a little bit weird. Number two, someone was saying something. Okay, past tense. It sounds like this event definitely happened. We're just not giving specifics. Кто-то что-то говорил. Кто-то говорил что-то. Кто-то говорил что-то. Okay, number three, let's chat about something. Okay, this is kind of future directed, right? Давай or давайте поговорим о чем-нибудь. Давайте поговорим о чем-нибудь, right? About whatever, right? About something. Okay, number four, do something. What's his perfective? Сделай что-нибудь. Сделай or сделайте что-нибудь, right? Do something. Again, we can think of this as future directed, so very likely to see нибудь. Okay, again, we might take that example. Сделай что-то, right? It sounds like, hey, do something I have in mind, but I'm not specifying it. It would be a kind of a weird thing to say. Okay, number five, he's some kind of idiot. Он какой-то дурак. Он какой-то дурак. He's some idiot. And again, this expression, you might want to circle this even. Какой-то is very common in Russian. Он какой-то дурак. People say things like that all the time, right? So again, in English, it would be he's some kind of idiot or he's some idiot, right? Okay, number six, what should I bring? Oh, some kind of wine. Okay, что надо принести? Что надо принести, right? What is it necessary to bring? Well, some kind of wine. Okay, so this is a future wine, right? We haven't bought it yet. It's very open-ended, future tense, right? Oh, bring some kind of wine. Вино какое-нибудь. Or какое-нибудь вино. Okay, number seven, I heard someone's voice. Okay, this is going to be a form of che. Я услышал. This is past tense, so we've heard a voice. We know there's a voice, but we don't know whose exactly. Right, so we're going to say Чей-то голос. Я услышал чей-то голос. Okay, so keep in mind that the guidelines we've given so far today, they really are just guidelines. And like so much in language, they do depend on context and on whatever the speaker is thinking within that context, right? So, that makes this tricky. Right. So the guidelines we've given today with respect to tense won't always hold up. They're very reliable, but they you shouldn't think of them as rules, right? So for example, let's look at three examples actually. Кто-то будет знать ответ. Okay, that's a future tense sentence, and we said that in future tense we would be more likely to hear не будет. But here, let's think about what the speaker's really saying. He's saying someone will know the answer. Right, he's expressing certainty that this person who knows the answer exists, right? This person will definitely materialize. There will definitely be someone who will know the answer. Кто-то будет знать ответ. Now, again, you might contrast that with кто-нибудь будет знать ответ. That could be a question, maybe. Кто-нибудь будет знать ответ. Кто-нибудь, where we're expressing uncertainty about whether or not there will be anyone who'll know the answer. But that's not the situation here. Okay, second example. Мы завтра поедем куда-то. We're going somewhere tomorrow. Okay, that's future tense, but again, it's not a question. And the speaker is expressing certainty that we are going somewhere tomorrow. But again, for whatever reason, they're choosing not to say. And again, we might interpret this as they're being a little bit mysterious. We're not sure why exactly, or maybe they're just saying that we're definitely going somewhere tomorrow, right? We're not quite sure yet where exactly, but the existence of this trip, the fact that it will happen, is something we're sure about. Finally, кто-то, наверное, получит повышение. Someone will probably get a raise. Okay, now again, this is a little bit different because we don't seem completely certain of this. We are saying наверное, but we are expressing a very high degree of confidence, right? That someone, we're not sure who, but someone is probably going to get a raise. And so again, you might contrast that with just an open-ended question where we would say кто-нибудь, right? Кто-нибудь получит повышение. Will someone get a raise? Right, but again, here, judging from what little context we have, right, we are expressing certainty. Okay, now moving from our tense-based guidelines, we can also make one other very useful generalization. If you're asking questions, you're almost always going to get a form with не будь. And it makes perfect sense, right? If you're asking a question like, is anyone at home? Well, then that's kind of the point of the question, right? You don't have any idea if anyone is at home, period, right? Much less, the specifics about who in particular. Okay, so we get this more open-ended, indefinite. For example, есть кто-нибудь дома? Or simply кто-нибудь дома? Or у кого-нибудь есть вопрос, right? Does anyone have a question? Well, we don't know. That's why we're asking, right? Does anyone in the room have a question? And so we use не будь. We don't know if there's a person or not with a question. Вы купили что-нибудь? Okay, did you buy anything? Okay, now there's a good example. We can translate this. Well, actually, all of these I just noticed, right? We in these questions we do often translate these не будь words as any, right? And again, I think that's one major reason why a lot of books will say, well, не будь means any, and то means some, right? But we've already seen that does not hold up very well at all, actually. So, for example, look at вы купили что-нибудь? Did you buy anything? We could also translate that using some. Did you buy something? Right? Did you buy me something? Did you buy me anything? Right? That really almost means the exact same thing in English, right? There's really very little distinction at all, right? But in Russian we need не будь, right? Because this is a question. Now again, can we use то? We could, but it would be weird, right? So if we say вы купили что-то, right? Again, it sounds like a kind of wink-wink situation where, did you buy a certain something, right? This kind of thing where you're being rather shifty for unknown reasons, right? So anyway, and again, the generalization, if you're using a question, не будь is going to be far more common. Okay. Есть какие-нибудь вопросы? Are there any questions? Are there any kind of questions, more literally in the Russian? Есть какие-нибудь вопросы? Or we could say, are there questions of any kind? Are there any questions? Okay, well, again, we could say that we don't know if there are questions at all, right? Much less, the specific kind of question or whatever, right? So we're getting не будет here in these questions. Okay, let's translate a couple of these. Did anyone call? Кто-нибудь звонил? Right, did anyone call at all? Кто-нибудь звонил? Did you go anywhere today? Okay, вы, let's use вы, plural. Вы куда-нибудь ходили сегодня? Куда-нибудь, right? Again, we don't know if they went anywhere or at all, right? That's the point of the question. So we get нибудь. Will you buy him anything? А ты купишь ему что-нибудь? Or ты ему купишь что-нибудь? Number 4. Did you ever watch this movie? Вы когда-нибудь смотрели этот фильм? Right? Когда-нибудь, right? Again, with the question, we can be pretty sure we're going to get нибудь. Right? The question, again, the point of the question is, has the person ever watched this movie at all? Right? Yes or no? Number 5. Did you find a key anywhere? Вы где-нибудь нашли ключ? Right? Did you find the key anywhere? Где-нибудь. Где-нибудь нашли ключ? Okay, 80.5, indefinites with adjectives. Now here, this is kind of a little detail, right? We often combine indefinites with a neuter singular form of the adjective. And that will give us useful expressions like anything interesting or something new. For example, ты узнал что-нибудь интересное? Интересное, right? Or сегодня я купил что-то новое, right? Something new. And you see that the basic word we're using here is the pronoun что, which we know is neuter singular. And so we're basically adding a neuter singular adjective to modify that что, right? Something interesting, something new, and so forth. Now we can, just like the pronoun itself, что, we can decline this, and in that case, the adjective as well would decline. For example, он говорил о чем-то скучном. He was talking about something boring. О чем-то скучном. There we have it in the prepositional singular. Okay, let's try a couple of these. I'll tell you something funny. Я тебе расскажу что-то смешное. Что-то смешное. Number 2, let's watch something interesting. Давайте посмотрим что-нибудь интересное. Right, there's that future tense, open-ended. Hey, let's watch something. Now, again, if we had something in particular in mind, we could say что-то, but that would be a bit less common, I think. Number 3, he said something really strange. Okay, that's past tense, so he said something, so we're going to use то. Он сказал что-то очень странное. Что-то очень странное. And number 4, buy me something expensive. Okay, that's an imperative, open-ended. Не будь. Купи мне что-нибудь дорогое. Okay, so our final topic today is how do you say any in Russian, right? So we've already discussed how the indefinites we've learned already, they would normally translate as some in English, right? And we saw that in questions, you might be more likely to translate those as any. But the question remains, how do you say any in Russian? Like, oh, let's meet anywhere you want, or I'll do anything you like, right? That type of expression. There are actually several ways to do this, and they're fairly easy, right? The first one is to use the word угодно. Угодно is an adverb. It means something. Угодный, the adjective it's a little bit hard to translate. It means something like pleasing, right? When you're talking about what pleases a person, what suits a person. So we use an adverbial form of that, угодно. So that means something like pleasingly or pleasant or desirable. And we can use that with with all of these adverbs, with the dative expression, right? Like, so you hear questions sometimes like, что вам угодно, right? What would you like? What is pleasant for you or something if we try to translate it literally. Okay, so anyway, we can use that in some very simple expressions, combining угодно with any question word, and we get an any expression. right? So, for example, можно встретиться где угодно. We can meet anywhere, right? Anywhere you want. And this is, you can see it's a totally open-ended type of expression. We can meet anywhere you want, anywhere you like, wherever you like. There are different ways to translate this. A second example, кого пригласить? Whom to invite, literally. Who should we invite? Кого угодно, right? Anyone you want, right? Whomever you want, anyone you like, doesn't matter. Okay, the second way to do this is to use a conjugated form of the verb хотеть, right? Sort of like in English, we say wherever you want, whoever, we can do the same thing in Russian. Куда поехать? Where to go, literally, right? Where should we go? Куда хочешь, right? Wherever you want, right? So that makes perfect sense, just like in English. We can also say things like купи какое хотите вино, right? Buy whatever kind of wine you like, right? Buy the kind of wine you like, whatever you like. Возьми сколько хочешь, мне все равно. Take as much as you like, I don't care. By the way, the phrase все равно is also a useful little phrase meaning I don't care, it's all the same, right? It's a good way to express indifference. Finally, there's also an adjective любой, which means any. And this is a little bit less common. We would use this with a noun, right, to modify some noun. So, for example, возьми любую карту, right? Pick a card, any card, right? Take any card you wish. Любую карту. And you see, of course, this is an adjective, so it's going to agree with the noun. Любой идиот это знает, right? Any idiot knows this. Покупайте наши продукты в любом магазине, right? In any store. Okay, so let's translate a few of these. And again, there are different ways to do this, but maybe let's try угодно because that's the simplest way. And I would say in speech, I guess it's probably the most common, although again, you could use хотеть as well. Okay, so где ты хочешь поужинать сегодня? Where would you like to eat tonight? Где угодно, right? Где угодно, где хочешь. Wherever, I don't care. Мне все равно. Number 2, какую газету тебе купить? What kind of newspaper should I buy you? Well, let's just stick with какую, right? Какую угодно, какую хочешь, right? Doesn't matter. What kind? Number 3, кого можно об этом спросить? Whom can I ask about this? Whom is it possible to ask about this? Кого угодно, or кого хочешь. 4, что ему сказать? What to say to him, right? What should we say to him? What should I say to him? Что угодно, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Tell him whatever you like. 5, чем надо писать? With what should we write? Ручкой или карандашом? With a pen or with a pencil? Okay, let's say, well, you can write with whatever you want. Чем угодно, чем хочешь. 6, как это сделать? How to do this, right? How should we do this? How can I do this? Как угодно, right? However you like, как угодно. 7, кому продать машину? To whom to sell the car, literally. Right? Who should we sell the car to? Кому угодно, right? To whomever. Whoever you want. 8, you can pay with any credit card. Okay, now here, any credit card, with any credit card, we're going to need probably an adjective here. So we could use любой and say, можно платить любой кредитной картой, right? You can pay with any credit card, instrumental. Любой кредитной картой. Okay. So that's it for today, and that's the end of the grammar in this book 2, right? So again, we ended day 79 and 80 with some grammar that, on the one hand, it's fairly simple. The forms are simple, but it's a little bit tricky. So I would advise beginning students to circle, to kind of bookmark these lessons and really take some time with them. And one reason for that is all these expressions, these negative and indefinite expressions, are extremely common, as you can imagine. So you're going to be seeing them all over the place. You're going to be hearing them. And hopefully, speaking of today's lesson, some experience with hearing this distinction between to and nibut in context will help you pick up on that distinction, as long as you're aware of it, right? So I think it's very, very important to be aware of this distinction, and that'll help you learn it properly. Again, I think when I was first learning Russian, I was not really aware of the distinction. I wasn't made aware of it, and it took me quite a while to play catch up later. Okay, anyway, so that's it for today. Until next time, до свидания, товарищи. Вперед к новым победам.